I'm David Griffin. It's the 6th of June 2018 and I'm up here at Buxton Cricket Club and I'm talking with
Bob Marsden, chairman of the club.
There we go, Bob. You've been given quite a lengthy grilling, so to speak, over the course of this afternoon. It is absolutely wonderful to be up here in such a splendid
It's always sunny
cricket.
in Buxton, David.
Well, I think we may touch on that issue in a minute. It's 32 years actually since I came here, which was Derbyshire's last ever game. And what I'd like to do is just touch on a bit of that.
Yep.
And I know your association with Buxton Cricket Club is I say only, the last 20 years. But obviously there was a long association of cricket being played here. Do you know anything? I know you're a historian and you're a great fan of the game.
I am interested. I am a historian by background and I was a history teacher, so I'm always interested in history and I love cricket, and therefore coming here to Buxton, ex-first class ground. So, you know, first class cricket was played here first in 1923, I think, against the first West Indian tourists who came. And so that was when Derbyshire's first class association with this ground. Though fascinatingly, going back, I double checked this today, I mean, back in 1864, Buxton and District played an All England 11. So that was just 11 years after this ground, or after cricket start on this ground, though I think it looked slightly different. You may want to ask me about that. And then in 1878, the first Australian tourists played here and again beat Buxton and District 22, I think it was. And the Australians remarked they'd come from certain northern towns that I won't mention, and they loved the clean air of Buxton. Though it said that they found the Buxton pitch the most eccentric that they played on, and I think that means that cricket was played here, but it wasn't the flat, terraced out ground that we see today, which I think was done in 1926. I hope to find out when I come to my retirement and go and research it.
It's interesting you mentioned 1923 because it's the same time that Derbyshire started to play cricket at Ilkeston.
Right.
And I don't know from a social history or sporting connection, but presumably Derbyshire were looking to expand to the north of the county and towards Nottingham, presumably.
Yes.
Just going back over the games, I mean, we can't come to Buxton even on a day like this and not mention the snow game. And we're hoping in due course, during the course of this project, to talk to someone who was here on that day. But is it an issue of, is it something that's embedded in the folklore of Buxton Cricket Club? Did you know about it, for example, before you?
Yes, I did. I did know about it, but then I'm a kind of cricketing badger, stroke nerd, as my sons would call me, because I'm interested in that kind of thing. And I did know about Buxton's history. I knew about that game. It's fascinating when you say that you're from Buxton, not just really in cricketing circles, but nearly always in cricketing circles from people who are older. They will say, the snow game, it snowed in the summer. You know, we are famous stroke infamous for that. That is what this ground is remembered for, and it's kind of entered folklore. I think as with all these things, I think some of the facts or some of the things that people say, I think that Dickie Bird said that there were 6 inches of snow on that day. Well, it was probably more like a quarter of an inch, but it certainly snowed, and certainly the game was called off because of the snow. So lots of kind of bits of folklore have kind of developed around it.
It's interesting because I tweeted that I was coming up here today, and somebody actually replied to me, "Be careful because of course it snows in June at Buxton."
Indeed.
I think we're safe tomorrow.
So I mean, inevitably, you know, I often say to people if they're coming, you know, wear your long johns. But we do get, you know, it can be. You need to remember this ground is 1,000 feet, so automatically it is 3 or 4 degrees colder than anywhere else in Derbyshire. You know, probably certainly Derby.
It at the moment. It's glorious,
no, it's absolutely glorious. We've had better weather than most places actually. We've had no rain, and other places in the country have had rain, and Derby's had rain as well. We've had very little, which is unusual because we are in a bit of a microclimate here. But the ground is at 1,000 feet, and therefore straight away you're 3 or 4 degrees colder than anywhere else. We tend to pick up more rain. I think that we probably think, as a club, we probably lose one more match than every other club. Right. You know, just because of we probably get more rain. So it is 1,000 feet, and that has its own challenges. Somebody once said that the great thing about living in Buxton is you see all 4 seasons, often in one day. And I think there's some truth in that. We certainly do see all 4 seasons. But they are.
You touched on the foundation of the club back in
1853.
Do we have any idea? I mean, we're sitting here now and we've got obviously huge mature trees and we can see the town, beautiful buildings in the distance and the pavilion. But have we any idea of what this would have been like if we'd sat here back in 1860s?
The only thing I do know is really from that 1878 Australians tour and their description of the ground. I originally thought that in 1850s and 1860s this ground had been levelled, and I kind of looked and I thought, well, that's a lot of work to level this ground. But actually in that 1878 Australians, the tour reports of that, which you can find online, they talked about the pitch being the most eccentric they'd played on, and also how undulating the surface was.
Right.
And that made me realise that, and then 1 or 2 other conversations I've had with people, that probably what they were playing on here, we're obviously on the top of the slope here, probably the ground sloped down, and probably had lots of undulations.
Yeah.
But this was the place that, the Duke had given for us to play cricket. It was undulating, there was a square out there. So that's what we kind of know about, we think we know. It'd be great to really confirm that. I'm pretty sure, just because of the records from that Australian tour, that is the case. And then I think in the 1920s, again, I'm keen to check this, and maybe somebody listening to this will be able to come and tell us. In the 1920s, I think, was when the ground was levelled and this was dug out. An extraordinary kind of bit of work to do that. A bit like at Denby, where you've got that great bank. You think how much earth was shifted out, pulled across, and pushed down the bottom end of the ground. And again, there must be records of that, down the county record office or in local papers, because it's a huge amount of earth to have moved out for this banking.
Yeah, it is a large space. Can you think back to the criteria for playing county cricket? This I assume would still fulfil the criteria from what I'm looking. Your straight boundaries and your width.
We're a big ground.
Yeah,
we're a big ground.
I mean, I suppose it's too much to expect that the county club would come back to Buxton, but is it a dream you still harbour that one day maybe Derbyshire would return to the north?
Well, I think I put it this way. I mean, the part of the problem of that is that, the county, the first class player wants good facilities, both on and off the field. And I know a little bit about Chesterfield. Cricket was stopped there, and then they spent a lot of money on the pavilion, and so on and so forth. It's not impossible. I personally would love it if it would happen. I personally could see a T20 match being played here. I mean, I've seen games at Leek. I think our outfield is probably less undulating than theirs.
Yeah. Need a few scouts in the trees.
Whatever. And I think it would be possible. I mean, there'd be a lot of things. But again, of course, it's financial. You need to be able to put up quite a lot of money. The county club, it takes a lot to play out of the county ground, which is marvellously improved. I know a little bit about how much it costs to go and play at Chesterfield. But I think it would be great if they did it, and I think it would be a great lift both for the area but also for the county club. So if somebody out there wants to sponsor us to the tune of £30,000 or £40,000, which I suspected what it would cost. And we've got plans to extend this pavilion to make it better, which is the kind of thing that a professional club needs. But they bring in lots of stuff, a different scoreboard and so on, whatever it may be.
Well, it's called county cricket for a reason, isn't it? And I think Derbyshire have played on 27 home grounds in their history, so they've generally taken the game around the county. What's the relationship between Buxton Cricket Club and Derbyshire County Cricket? Is there any? Does there need to be any, or is it with more with the DCB?
Well, interesting. I think that when the county played here, it was a great highlight for the town and for the area, and a huge effort went in. Interesting, somebody was telling me that these concrete steps were done one of the last times that the county club played, or so one of the times when a John Player League match was televised. One of the older club members was telling me that they were looking at them thinking, because the cameras were down the bottom end, because they tended to be just from one end in the old days, and they said, "Gulp, they're gonna see these old steps," and they redid them. And I think that probably when the county came in way back in the 70s, and then up to 86 was the last time they came, that for the club it meant everything had to be right, so that everything was done. And then when the county stopped coming, maybe it wasn't a huge effort still went in on the square and other places, but I think that was a great incentive when the county came to get things done and to get things right. And there was a little bit of feeling, I think, when the county stopped coming, there was probably a bit of disconnect. And remember, historically, this club played in Staffordshire.
Yes.
In the North Staffs and South Cheshire League, which has had historically a very strong link with Derbyshire, of course, Staffordshire. And therefore, I think we were a bit disconnected, really, from the county club, and I think a little bit in the early days from the county board. But in the last 15 years, we've worked very hard with the county board to be involved in district cricket, and I think that's been a tremendously beneficial thing for everybody. I'm a fan of the Derbyshire Cricket Board. I think they do a tremendous job. Okay, there are things people can quibble about and whatever, but I think compared to the way that club cricket used to be, the help that there is, if you want to avail yourselves of it, is tremendous. It's not perfect, but I think it's very good.
One of the things that viewers who may be able to pick up on is that in the background we've got a young man flying a drone
Yes.
Across your outfield, but not on your square. I'm just interested in how from the 1800s cricket clubs, this cricket club has survived and evolved. And I know this may only be a minor little thing, but does that diversity, the fact that you're here with tennis and bowls, and you talked about 300 people, I think in one of your previous interviews, have got a connection directly with the club. Is that something that evolves all the time, and can you see it surviving into, well into the 21st century and beyond, or a bit further into the 21st century and beyond?
When I said 300, I'm talking actually in terms of members that we have. Either, if we have 100 juniors plus parents, straight away we're up to, nearly 250, and include players and so on. In terms of what you say, I personally am very positive, because I think cricket's evolving. I think there's lots of things happening, and there are great challenges in terms of club cricket, retaining younger players, the way the cricket will be played. There may be changes in that coming.
What sort of changes?
Well, what format, whether we play 50 over games, 40 over games, T20, all that kind of thing. But at this club, we're constantly trying to encourage people to use the clubhouse, for instance. I mean, lots of clubs do this. It's not original to us. In terms of getting the community in, it helps us financially. It means more people are coming in. So if you've been here yesterday, there was a group that helps people with learning difficulties using the clubhouse and so on. This guy flying his drone, he asked permission. We said, give us a contribution. Come and fly. He needs open air. And people come and use the outfield for other things. We have the University of Derby here, the Buxton campus. They come and use this for their Freshers' Week, for their kind of team building stuff. And other people do that. We have the Buxton Lions have a fantastic fireworks here, so we get huge numbers for that.
Right.
And so I think that we're no different from any club that's looking to build links with the community. The more people we can get coming here, the better. I think historically people came here for the county game. Yes. And when that stopped, I think there was a bit of less people came to the club, which was inevitable. And we're always keen now to build links with the community.
Good. Bob, you're a historian. You've got a history degree. You've taught very passionately about this club, and I know there's an anniversary looming, and you've got plans to actually do some further delving into the history of Buxton. Could you perhaps, just before we conclude, just give us a brief explanation as to what it is you're trying to do in the next couple of years?
Well, I am, yeah, as you say, I'm a historian. I taught history, and I love cricket heritage. I think that clubs, institutions, individuals, schools, whatever it may be, is strengthened by a knowledge of their history, where they've come from. Because I think it helps you not to make mistakes, the same mistakes. It helps you to realise that people have gone before in terms of doing the ground, building a pavilion, whatever it may be. So, I mean, I'm very keen actually to recover a bit more of the heritage of this club. I kind of hold up, you know, we'll be 175 years away. That 175th anniversary is a bit away, but I'm already getting people to think, what could we do? And I think it'd be great for us to do a bit more work on, you know, the history of the club. And, you know, that won't interest everybody, but it will interest some.
Yeah.
And also, I think it fires one or two people to work harder for the club. You know, we stand on the shoulders of people in the past, you know, who built this ground and who've done this ground and who've played here. It personally always fires me, you know, to do things well, because people in the past do things well, and hopefully people in the future. Now, you know, your average teenage junior doesn't get terribly motivated by it, but one day they may come back and say, I played at this ground, it's a magnificent ground, you know, I'd like to play here again, or I'd like to contribute, whatever it may be. And, you know, so that's the kind of way that I operate, and I think others do as well. So we're quite keen to recover a bit more of the history and the heritage of the club, which we're not strong in. There may be people out there who know something about Buxton Cricket Club, you know, have got things hidden away, you know, pictures, or, you know, you're the kind of person, you're discovering this all the time, and so we're always interested to find out more. So contact David Griffin.
Well, the interesting thing is, of course, nobody's born old, and what happens is there's a sort of metamorphosis. You're a young person, and then suddenly you start having an interest in social history or in you know, it's very rare you start off young doing that kind of thing, but you kind of grow towards it. Can you see you being around for the 200th, Bob? Will you be organising the celebrations for?
No, I won't be here. I won't be here for 200. I can tell you. I mean, I'll be extremely cantankerous old man. I mean, one of the things that, you know,
you might be the man they want to interview.
Well, yeah, but I mean, one of the interesting things I say, you know, I want people to think on this ground, the present club members, both adult and junior, say, once upon a time, 8,000 people watched a John Player League match here. 8,000 people. Where did they go? Well, there's great banks. The county club used to build a stand where the tennis courts are. But 8,000 people once came and watched cricket here. You know, I think that's magnificent to remember. Now, whether that could ever happen again, I doubt it. 8,000's a lot of people on a club ground. But, you know, I think it's good for people at the present club to think, wow, you know, it once happened here.
And they'll be telling their own stories in years to come.
Yeah, that's right.
It's been an absolute pleasure to sit here in the sunshine. No snow in June at Buxton.
No, it's always sunny in Buxton.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks very much.
Great.